It's tough maintaining a child's interest, but Kate Scarborough has had the experience to know what it's all about. Kate, you used to be a teacher, didn't you?
Yes, 6 years ago I had the idea that I wanted to do something for children, so I decided to be a primary school teacher. I have never been so tired as I was working as a teacher in a classroom. You just never stop. Working with children is so intensely exhausting, but it's also fantastic.
Well, today we're sitting in your London office and talking about something very different, being the founder of CY Magazine, a new magazine for children. Having worked in children's non-fiction publishing for 12 years before retraining as a primary school teacher, you certainly have the background to produce such a magazine.
Yes, well, being a teacher, I guess, led me to the idea for CY. I felt that there was a gap in the market for a monthly publication that not only entertains and teaches children, but also satisfies their parents too. And it was during my teaching days that I began preparing for CY. I talked to children about what they wanted. I then thought, if I was a child, what would I want? And as a parent, what would I want my children to be reading?
OK. Now, the outcome is a magazine that's filled with competitions, short stories, puzzles, and a cartoon strip. Flicking through the first issue, I'd say two things become apparent: enthusiasm and the language used.
Enthusiasm is incredibly important. When I was at school, it didn't matter what you were teaching children if you totally believed in it. When you give a bad lesson, you can see those blank faces looking back at you. I really hope I get that belief across and that children find it entertaining and become interested in what's going on around them all the time.
How about the actual style of writing itself?
The whole brief to my writers was that they should approach it as if they are talking to intelligent people. Of course, you can't use some words because they would go above children's heads. But when I was doing my research, I put a number of texts in front of children. They are very perceptive. If they feel they are being talked down to, they see it. So it's all written in a direct way, rather than assuming you have to use a very childish style. The readers wouldn't like that.
Now, the age range for the magazine is stated as 7 to 12 years, but it's quite difficult to judge that, isn't it?
Yes, children develop at different rates. For some, at 7 it will be difficult, but for others, perfect. And when some hit 12, they become interested in totally different things. Parents will know whether or not it's right for their children.
Now, a very interesting aspect of the magazine is its use of the internet. Tell me about that.
Well, if children read something that interests them, by visiting the magazine's website, they can learn much more about it. The reasons for this are rooted in my experiences at school. Take explorers as a subject. There are so many fantastic stories attached to them and all kinds of themes to raise excitement, but you can't spend a week teaching them that. So I wanted readers to be able to follow up a subject in a way they may not be able to at school.
Now, obviously, you want the magazine to be successful and profitable, I assume.
Yes, but ultimately it isn't making a profit that's on my mind. I want to inspire children. If a child reads an article in the magazine on houses, for example, and they are inspired to go on to be an architect, that's great. It can be the tiniest thing that sparks a child off. From my point of view, I'm trying to cover as much as I can so there's a chance of that little spark.
OK. Now, another aspect of the magazine is the cartoon. Part 2.
So, are you thinking about that idea again? That absolute money spinner? The ultimate business brainchild that could change your fortunes and transform your life forever? No, you think it's impossible. People like you should stick to dreaming. But what if you were given a real chance to change your life and achieve that goal? How would you react if the support you need suddenly landed in your lap? Not in the form of a loan, but free. Well, now's your chance. In this competition, we're offering £100,000 to a budding entrepreneur, and there are no obligations other than that you have to use the money to follow through your idea. All you have to do is convince us that your plan is worth backing. The £100,000 prize is to help pay for your financial commitments while you pursue your goal. The competition is open to a variety of ideas and people. Perhaps you have a particular skill that you know could be put to more effective use in a different sector or country. Perhaps, given the right backing, you could change hundreds of lives. Are you an engineer with an idea that could transform sanitation and bring clean water to Africa? Or an architect with a vision that could solve the problems in Britain's inner cities? Or are you a farmer who could teach the world's poorest people how to grow crops in the worst conditions? If you are any of these, you could win the competition and the prize money. Here are the details for entering. If you phone, after leaving your name and address, you will have up to 1 minute to pitch your idea. If you choose to email, you will have to pitch your idea in no more than 100 words. There are 3 categories of entry, and you will have to choose one of them. The first category is for those with an innovative idea for a business offering a new product or service. The second is for those who plan to learn new skills by taking a course such as an MBA. The third is for those who want to use their skills to support a socially responsible project. The winner will be chosen from across all 3 categories. Now, there are some other very important details if you are thinking of going in for the competition. Only 1 entry per person is allowed. Multiple entries are not permitted. If you make a mistake while delivering your pitch, you will not be allowed to call back and leave another entry. We suggest that you practice delivering your pitch before phoning. If it helps, write down a script and read that. And remember, you can't go over the time limit. Our judges will be looking for a number of qualities when they make their decision. The best idea will have big potential and demonstrate a great deal of innovation. The judges will want to be sure that the idea, if it was carried out, would change the life of the entrant and preferably the lives of others. Entrants must be able to demonstrate great passion for their project, with thought having been given to how it could be put into practice. The top 100 will then be whittled down to 10, who will be invited to present their ideas in person to a panel of judges. The winner will then be announced.
Part 3.
This evening, in our series Careers with a Difference, our guest is Rachel Reed, who works for a small commercial art gallery. Rachel, welcome.
Hello.
Rachel, what exactly do you do?
Well, there's 2 great things about working for a really small company. Firstly, you get to do a bit of everything. The other is that you can practically invent your job title. Mine is marketing manager, although I do a lot of other things too. It does describe the majority of what I do.
So, tell us about your day.
Well, it all starts with the huge pile of post we get. We often get artists sending in photographs of their work to see if we'd be interested in exhibiting it. I learned very early on how to differentiate between the possibles and those which are unsuitable.
But how do you tell?
It might be the style, or sometimes the subject matter is just not going to look right in our gallery. But more often than not, it's just that they're not of the required standard. The possibles I pass on to the gallery manager, who makes the final decision.
So you have quite a lot of contact with artists?
Yes. Sometimes I spend nearly all day on the phone, and about 50% of the time it's artists. I send letters explaining why we can't show their work. Some of them phone up to argue about it. I find those calls very hard to deal with. Artists we do exhibit also phone to find out if we've managed to sell anything and, if we have, when the money will be coming through. I don't mind those so much. Most other calls are from clients. We have a new artist exhibiting here every 2 to 4 weeks, and before the show takes place, we send out a catalogue to the clients on our database.
Obviously the catalogue's illustrated.
Oh, yes. And as soon as the catalogue goes out, we start getting phone calls because people see something they like and want to reserve it. Sometimes they even buy things over the phone. The catalogue also contains a commentary about the artist, which I have to write and research. I try to find out what has influenced them, where they learned to paint, what the subject matter represents, that sort of thing. But I try to avoid quoting from positive reviews of their work. It's not meant to be advertising as such.
So your job is not all administrative.
Compared to a typical office, that side of it's quite minimal. That's why I can cope without an assistant. There are systems in place to deal with routine jobs. For instance, I don't have to send out the catalogues. The company which prints them also prints the envelopes and posts them. Another company takes care of the food and drinks when we have the opening of a new exhibition.
And are you involved in other aspects of the business?
Yes. We also offer a consultancy service for large companies that want to display works of art in their offices. I phone round companies, explain what we do, and if they're interested, make an appointment for the gallery manager to go and see them. It's interesting. The companies tend to go much more for modern or abstract art than people coming to the gallery.
And the best part of the job for you?
The really rewarding thing for me is that you never know how a day is going to go. Some days it'll be really quiet, other days it's really busy and you don't know what you're going to have to cope with. And there's the added bonus of working with really nice people. And, of course, I have the pleasure of spending my days surrounded by beautiful works of art. So I can't complain.
Thank you, Rachel. And now we'll move on to something...
Part 4.
Thanks for inviting me tonight. As you know, my main interest is in conservation, and I'm lucky enough to work with lots of different organisations looking after animals both in captivity and in the wild. I'd been fascinated by all kinds of bears for a long time before I started working in this field, but it was the spectacled bear that really attracted me. Some people find it appealing because of its size and shape, and it's less well known than other types of bear. But for me, I thought it was such a great name. It comes from the patches of yellowish fur around the bear's eyes, which grow in a sort of circle shape like glasses. Although these golden markings vary greatly from one bear to another and may not be limited to the eyes, they can extend as far as the bear's cheeks or even chest. I'd like to explain what we know about this bear and why I find it so fascinating. It's the only survivor of a type of bear that once ranged across America during the last ice age. We thought that it was only found in certain places in Venezuela and Chile, but I was thrilled to read some reports that suggested it might also be living in northern parts of Argentina and eastern Panama. It's quite difficult to find spectacled bears in the wild because they are quite shy animals and tend to live in a wide variety of habitats, which can range from dry coastal deserts to high mountain areas above 4,000 metres. They are most commonly found in forests, though. Being such timid animals, they tend to come out at night, which is another thing that makes them difficult to see, though, like me, you may be surprised to learn that they don't sleep all through the winter, as many other types of bear do. We're not sure about the actual number of spectacled bears that remain in the wild, but it's been estimated that there are only about 2,400 still around. The bears are endangered, not so much because they are hunted by other animals, but what I find really sad is the fact that humans destroy their habitat. Spectacled bears are quite small compared with other bears, and of course they do have other enemies. These mostly include mountain lions and jaguars, but they remain a smaller threat. The bears are primarily vegetarian, and their normal diet is tree bark and berries.
On rare occasions, though, they eat honey, which I thought was just something in children's books. I was interested to find that they are incredibly good climbers, and one thing I found really funny is that they've been known to sit up in a tree for days. They make a platform. Why? I couldn't guess, but they're waiting for fruit to ripen so they can eat it. It's quite surprising that although they rarely eat meat, they have extremely strong jaws and wide, flat teeth. Very occasionally they do eat meat, something like birds or insects, though they like small mice best if they can get them. We're really trying to make people more aware of the bears, and we've made a television series about one man's efforts to make people understand the dangers facing the animals. He spent a long time in Peru studying them and has published a very funny diary of his time there. I hope everyone will read it and support our efforts to help these fascinating creatures. So, are there any questions?